This is our first Table A item explainer for land title surveys. We're going to do a set of videos. We're going to go through each and every Table A item in the Table A for land title surveys. People call them ALTA surveys. We want you guys to understand what those Table A items are so you know which box to check when you're going to order a land title survey. So in this video, we're going to cover Table A item 2. Okay, Table A item 2 has to do with addresses. So what does Table A item 2 say? I'm going to read it to you right out of the spec. It says, addresses of the surveyed property, if disclosed in documents provided to or obtained by the surveyor or observed while conducting the field work. So we want to answer these three questions for each Table A item, including this one. Why is this in the spec? So why did they put it in Table A to begin with? Why do we care about addresses? What do I have to do as the land surveyor to meet the requirements of the spec if you check that box on item number 2? And how do I show that I've met the spec, that I've met the requirement for item number 2 on my map? What do I have to put on my map so that you know I did my job? Okay, we're going to answer those three questions. So why is this in the spec? Why do they even give people an option to find out about addresses, right? The short answer is lay people or common people buy and sell property based on addresses. It's just reality. Now that's a problem though. Why is it a problem? Well, it's a problem because addresses are kind of messy. I need to do a separate video just on why addresses are messy. But you know, an address can refer to a parcel. It could refer to a building on a parcel. It could refer to a part of a building in a building on a parcel, or you might have a vacant parcel with no address at all. So addresses are tough, but that's what people understand. So that's what if somebody says, oh, you're buying a house, what house are you buying? Oh, I'm buying 3938 Kimball Lane over in Stockton. Oh, okay. You know, that's how we in America, that's how we refer to property most frequently. I've even seen situations where people have used parcel addresses in legal documents related to real property, which can cause huge problems. So the reality is people care about addresses, and the real reason this is an option in Table A item 2 is people want to know, is the property that I'm going to buy based on the deed, is that the property with the address that I think I'm buying? Okay, so we don't buy and sell properties by deed legally in our legal system. In our legal system, there's a written description for the property and it's in the deed, right? So if your deed says lot 6 of block 2 of the Three Oaks subdivision map, and you think you're buying the parcel next door because that's the address that's on the, whatever's on the real estate listing, it doesn't matter. You're going to buy what's in the deed. That's what you're buying. So if there's a conflict between the address you think you're buying and the deed, you get what's in the deed, because that's what we use to legally buy and sell property. So when somebody checks this item on Table A, what they're trying to just make sure, it's a due diligence thing, right? They want to make sure, hey, I want the surveyor to tell me if he thinks I'm buying the address that I think I'm buying based on what's in the deed. Okay, so that's why people care. So how do I meet the requirements of the spec if you check item 2 on Table A? What do I got to do as a land surveyor? Okay, so there's a couple different things I got to do. Number one, I got to determine if the address is physically shown on the site. Okay, that's part of what the item requires. So what I have to do is I got to look for addresses when I'm out doing the field work, right? And most of the time, unless we're dealing with a completely vacant lot, an ag lot or a piece of woodland or something, there's usually an address on the property, right? It's on a building, it's on a mailbox, it's on a sign. So we when we're out doing an ALTA survey, if you've checked Table A item 2, my field crews are looking for that kind of stuff, and we're taking pictures, right? So I'm not joking. If you hire us to do a survey of a shopping center, we are going to go take a picture of every address on every shop. If you check Table A item 2, that's part of our job, right? And we're gonna collect that data, and then we'll show it on a map. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so one is I just have to physically inspect the site for evidence of addresses, right? Okay, the second thing that I've got to do as a land surveyor is I got to review the documents that you either provide me or that I obtain as part of my research, and I got to see what address is being used to identify or describe this property in the documents. Now, the spec isn't super clear. There's a little bit of a gray area here. I think that what the spec applies to is documents that are either deeds, the land title report or tax assessor information. I don't think it applies to every single document that might be listed in the title report. But basically, it's if your deed, if the current grant deed for the property has a different address than the address that I physically see on the site, that's a problem. I gotta ask questions about that, right? Like I gotta alert all the parties to the transaction that there could potentially be a conflict there, right? And I've actually had that happen. I was working on a job in San Francisco where I was doing a land title survey for a project that was in development, partially constructed, and the deed and some other documents, some land use restrictions documents, referred to an address that no longer existed because they built basically condos on this property, and so now there were different addresses. There was different common area addresses for the condos, and then each condo unit had its own address, and none of those were the address of the old parcel. And so this comes up, and when a surveyor sees that kind of thing, when she's doing the survey, she needs to make a note of that on the survey, and she needs to alert the parties to the transaction. Okay? All right, so that's what I got to do. I got to physically look for the address on the site, and then I got to check the docs, see if the physical address on the site lines up with what we see in the documents. Okay, how do I show that I've met the spec on the map? What do I have to put on my map? That's the last question we want to answer. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to show the address. Okay, so whatever addresses I find, either on the site or in the documents, I need to show them on the survey. Okay, so if it's just a parcel, let's say it's a vacant parcel of land, maybe it's an orchard with no buildings. What I'll do is we always have a label with information on the parcel that's on the map. So it might say Lands of Blake with the recording number for the deed and the area, 40 acres, and then we'll put right on there the address, right? 2500 Dirty Oak Road, whatever it is. Okay, so we'll put it right on the face of the map. Okay, the other thing we do is we always add a note for this Table A item. So we'll have in our Table A item notes, there will be a note, and it will talk about the addresses. It will tell you, did we find an address on the site? Yes or no? What was the address? Did it match the address in the title report, the deed, or the tax assessment records? And then in the note, we'll talk about any funny stuff. So if we go out there and there's a building and it doesn't have an address, that's strange, right? So we're going to ask some questions. We might tell you, hey, there's an apartment building on this parcel, or there's a warehouse on this parcel, but there's no visible address, because that's strange, right? And so any kind of unusual stuff that might relate to the address, we will put in our Table A item note, because we want you to be aware of what's going on with site addresses, right? So there you go. That's the first Table A item explainer from RH. Table A item number 2, addresses. We're going to do some more of these videos. We're going to do one video for each Table A item. So definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to catch the other videos on Table A items, and hopefully this will make it easier for you folks that are involved in real estate that have to request or order land title surveys. You'll be able to understand what each of these Table A items are and whether or not you need to get that Table A item checked for your particular survey.